Please welcome Adithya Sastry from Cognizant. He is the general manager of the Cognizant's IoT line of business. He's been with Cognizant for 1.5 years, but was formerly led GE and NCR with P&L responsibility for their vertical solution practice. An interesting anecdote about Adithya is he also became a vegan 3 years ago and is very much enjoying it. So let's kick the day off right with the application economy. Please welcome Adithya Sastry.
Thank you, Honore. First of all, good morning and thanks for coming. And I'm glad you guys got here early to save seats. As you can tell, there are not too many seats remaining. But, IoT is a very, very interesting and exciting topic, right? A lot of hype. It's nice, it's cool. Everybody wants to be involved in it. But the question really remains, will the potential ever live up to the hype? Or are we going to go through another RFID kind of cycle where you talk about RFID solving the world's problems, but really nothing has been implemented of scale? So that's really the challenge with IoT. Now, I am fairly realistic kind of from a personal standpoint. I don't get too excited about things. At the same time, when things don't go my way, I don't get too disappointed. But with IoT, I do see a big potential, right? Now, we can all argue about when it will happen. When's the inflection point? When are things really going to take shape and start to kind of see mass adoption in the market? But IoT is nothing new. It's been around for a while, right? Basic analog and digital sensors have been connected to drive process optimization, to drive closed loop process control for decades. It's nothing new. But the beauty about IoT now is with the commoditization of compute, storage, and networking, it gives businesses of all sizes the opportunity to bring smarter products to market, drive smarter processes, and really look at new disruptive business models in a whole new way. So the way we approach IoT from a Cognizant standpoint is really, at the end of the day, IoT is just a technology, right? And when we talk to our customers, when we talk to analysts, when we speak with our partners, IoT is really kind of an enabler of a broader digital transformation strategy, right? That's really kind of how we approach the discussion about IoT with our customers. And when we talk to our customers, one of the things we try and understand is really what are a customer's strategic imperatives? What's their next year's operating plan, right? Everybody wants to drive incremental revenue, right? That's a no-brainer. Everybody wants to drive margin expansion. But then we take that down a step further and understand what are the key drivers to enable margin expansion? Is it reducing cost of goods if you're a product company? Is it increasing yield if you're a manufacturing company? Is it reducing post-sales warranty support if you're a product company, right? Because we all think about products and we think about gross margins and operating margins. But very rarely does a product manager really look at post-sales warranty costs and factor that into the overall profitability of a product. And what makes IoT a little bit more complex than any other technology is, it really is a blend of multiple technologies coming together, right? It's not just instrumentation. It's not just analytics. It's just not just cloud for scale. It's just not security. It requires a really strong interdisciplinary approach to bring all these disparate technologies and processes and expertise into a solution, right? That's what makes it complex. Now, organizations have expertise independently across all these technologies, right? But very few organizations have a group where all these experts come together to solve problems, to identify new business opportunities. And that's where companies and partners like Cognizant, like CA, are very relevant because we bring those expertise to help customers address those problems. So as I mentioned, when we talk about IoT, we don't start the discussion with IoT. We talk about a broader digital transformation, what is the customer doing? What is the digital strategy of an enterprise, right? And when you think about design, it's just not about having something that's a user interface that looks good, but has the process been defined in a simple, elegant, and intuitive way, right? That's what will drive adoption. That's what will allow a field service engineer out in the field to be able to use these new processes and these new technologies that you've implemented. It's a massive change management exercise. It's not the technology piece is a small piece of it, right? IoT implementation is a pretty big business transformation, change management initiative. Because when you're talking about using these technologies to drive distribution center simplification, right? Reducing the number of DCs you have in a particular location through instrumentation, through sensors, or reducing field service depots. It can have rooftop implications. It can have, reduction in force implications, right? So this is a pretty big initiative. So too often, and I'm certainly guilty of it, too often we tend to make it about technology and about a solution or an application. But I definitely encourage all of you, and if you're not already doing it, to really think about it in terms of a broader organizational impact. Impact not only to your customers, but impact with your partners, with your suppliers, and within the employees of the four walls of your company, right? Because it has implications across the board. So we talked about digital strategy being key foundational block for an enterprise must have. Experience design is obviously very relevant. Now you see more and more technology companies really giving a lot more importance to design, product design. You've seen, all of you have heard about Frog and IDEO and so on and so forth. But more than product design, process design, right? How do you drive and implement seamless, elegant, intuitive processes that interface not only machine to machine, but machine to human and human to machine, right? So it's easier said than done, but we all will learn over the course of the next couple of years and get better at it, right? We don't have the answers, but with the right partners, with the domain experts from the customers, it really takes kind of a collaborative effort to figure out what's the right process and that you're going to implement. Obviously technology. IoT is a technology at the end of the day. Technology is important, and understanding how instrumentation, how connectivity, how cloud can be leveraged for scale, and most importantly, how do you do this in a very secure manner, right? You're talking about edge devices. Edge security is very important. Network security is important. What happens when 5 years down the road you have a sensor, which is basically a small computer, sitting in an oil rig, somewhere the warranty is expired? How do you ensure that you don't expose that edge device is not exposed to potential security threats, right? The devices are going to stay long after we are gone, right? Nobody's going to go down an oil rig and replace the sensor or the smart edge device unless it breaks, but the warranty has expired. So how do you ensure that you're securing the devices? Because the reality is, we talk about our digital wallets being stolen, right? Our credit cards being stolen. It is bad, but we can recover from it. But imagine an edge device being compromised. It can bring down a smart grid. It can take down an oil well. It can take down our entire water purification system. So these have huge implications on our society as a whole, right? And finally, industry knowledge is very important. Now, from a Cognizant standpoint, when I walk the hallways of Cognizant, very strong technical people that can run circles around me from a technology standpoint. What we have started to do deliberately over the last couple of years is complement that technology expertise with business and industry expertise, right? So we've brought on folks that have managed a distribution center, that manage retail store operations, that have managed an assembly line or a manufacturing plant. Because it's very important for us, if we are going to be engaging with customers, to understand what it's like to be a customer, what it's like to run an assembly line, what it's like to manage finished good inventory that's sitting on your shelf as opposed to being sent to your customer, managing spare parts out in the field. So you have to understand, having been in a position where you've managed those cost structures, the P&Ls and so on and so forth, to be able to have those discussions with the customer. So industry experience is obviously very important. When we look at IoT, it's very easy to get kind of enamored by all the possibilities and the opportunities of IoT, right? We all, way deep down, most of us, I'm sure, if not all of us, are geeks in a little bit way, right? We want to try new things. We want to dabble with things. And it's easy to get into science projects, right? But the reality is, neither a customer nor a partner we don't have the time to do science projects. Yesterday, Mike talked about compressed innovation at his keynote. So we are all forced to really rapidly innovate. Think big, start small, and if we're going to fail fast. Course correct, and get back on the path. So when we think about IoT, we really try and break it down into two specific areas: smart products and smart processes, right? And some may argue there's a third one, smart places. But smart places really, in our world, comes under smart processes, because when you're talking about building automation, when you're talking about a multi-tenant building, with driving energy management, security, and so on and so forth, it's a process. It's not really location dependent. And from an entry standpoint, when you think about smart products and smart processes, if you think about what's the least resistant path to get something going in IoT, right? Anytime there's a dependency on incremental revenue or a premium price or a price uptick, it's a bigger challenge. So that's why you see consumer IoT getting a lot of hype, right? You see wearables, you talk about smart homes and smart health and so on and so forth. But the reality of it is very few implementations of scale have been done, because somebody's got to pay for that, right? And then you have 100 mouths to feed, partners screaming me, I, then you have suppliers and so on and so forth. So it's a big challenge to implement something when there's a dependency on incremental revenue. However, when it's a margin expansion opportunity, right? Getting better yield in the manufacturing process, reducing consumables usage, reducing post-sales warranty support by preventive, predictive maintenance, by remote problem isolation and resolution. There is no dependence in incremental revenue. If you can come up with an application and a solution that drives 10 basis points improvement in a process, the customer will engage with you. They will support you, and they will try it out. Right, so the key, is, at least that's what our focus right now is, to focus on margin expansion opportunities in the short term. Right? We are doing the cool, the sexy, the nice things around wearables and smart homes and using a watch to open car doors and start a car and so on and so forth. We're doing all that with automobile manufacturers and with content providers that own the last mile connectivity to a home. But that's nice, and that gets people excited. But what really gets traction from a revenue standpoint is margin expansion opportunities. So really, if you were to break down the complexity of IoT into three big buckets, one is the layer of engagement, right? Physical object to physical object to human, human to physical object, and so on and so forth. Because the reality of it is, we all leave digital footprints everywhere we go, right? Not just as a person, but our mobile device, our homes, because now all these devices are smart, right? So they have the ability to collect and make some decisions independent of a network. So a physical object, a place, a person, all have digital footprints. And in the past, some of them have been connected, but now, because of the commoditization of internet and cloud, each and every one of these devices, objects, people, etc., can be connected. And it gives huge opportunities to, unprecedented opportunities to businesses to drive business transformation. right? So you can pretty much connect, interact, and transact anything today. Literally, it's limitless opportunities, right? But again, that's the challenge. The opportunity is limitless. So how do you kind of break it down into bite-sized, digestible chunks and do things where you're always taking one step forward as opposed to running in place on a treadmill, right? That's the big challenge, the conundrum that we all face. So and I haven't heard of any companies or partners saying we do IoT end to end, they either don't understand the complexity of IoT or they're lying. And most likely they're not lying, they just don't understand the complexity. IoT is really not an off-the-shelf solution. It takes a very strong partner ecosystem to bring an application to market and solve a customer's problems. You need technology partners. You need networking partners. You need cloud partners. You need industry consultants, or you need suppliers. Everybody's got to collaborate and figure out how to drive an application or solution that solves customer problems. So platform partners are relevant, very important. And from a platform standpoint, you talk about IoT platforms, challenges, lack of standards in IoT. Will there ever be standards? I doubt it. And that's where IoT platforms are really kind of grappling with. Where do they focus and what kind of devices, what data formats, what data sources? So when we think about IoT platforms, we really see three categories of IoT platforms, right? One is companies that are coming up from the device side up, right? Like PTC's ThinkWorks, like Xively, that have the expertise on connecting devices, and now they're exposing all the data that the device has up to the cloud for consumption. Then you have companies that already have a strong cloud presence, like the Microsoft Azures, like the Amazon AWS, like the Google Cloud, that are saying, hey, any IoT application needs cloud for scale. So they're coming from the cloud down to the device level, right? And then you have industrial companies that are saying, wait a minute, it's not about technology, it's about industry expertise. So GE with their Predix platform, Honeywell with their Tridium platform, Bosch with their Reimagining Software Innovation Group. They've all built out IoT platforms, and they're coming at it from all different angles. So today, there are clearly there's not one IoT platform that stands out from the other, but there are some that are gaining a little bit more traction than others. So we talked about platforms, then obviously you need to have very strong domain expertise, either in supply chain, logistics, retail store operations, travel, airline, whatever it may be. For the markets you're trying to target, it's very important to have the right expertise from a domain standpoint. Not just from an industry vertical, but a horizontal supply chain expertise, logistics experience, field service operations, manufacturing experience, and so on and so forth. So as we, Cognizant, start to engage with our customers, one of the things we have continuously kind of done in a very deliberate and disciplined manner is built out very strong accelerators, if you will, that helps us bring the solutions to market in a very rapid and disciplined manner, sooner than later, right? So we built out these functional solutions, adapters, and then we've also built out industry solutions where we believe that the market's going to take off, is going to get more traction over the next 12 to 18 months. So in retail, insurance, manufacturing, et cetera. So we've all kind of talked about the complexity of IoT and where do we start and how do we start, right? So one of the things that we do, we don't pretend to know the customer's business. We know a little bit. We can go 3, 4, 5, 6 questions deep, but we don't pretend to go 10, 15 questions deep. So we go through a very, very disciplined, managed innovation process with our customers. And the first part of it is really kind of the idea lab, right? And the whole notion here is get cross-functional stakeholders from the customer, from partners, and Cognizant in a room where we think about what are the key disruptions that are happening in their industry. Are they at risk of being Uberized? And yes, Uberized is a verb today. Is there a risk of them being, being impacted with an Airbnb model, right? So we think about what are the disruption, who are the new entrants that are coming into the markets that they serve, and how are they doing it? And we encourage our customers not to talk about, well, this is the way it's been, we understand the challenges, but to really ask the question, why? Why not? What if? How about? Right? And all within the context of digital transformation, right? We encourage our customers to think that. And then once we go through that, and we really categorize the ideas into 4 different buckets. High impact, low cost, low complexity of implementation. High impact, high cost of implementation. Low impact, high cost, and low impact and low cost. Obviously, the low-hanging fruit is high impact, low cost of implementation, low complexity, right? So we tend to kind of focus our efforts on that. And then we get into a rapid prototyping initiative with our customers, where we sit in a room, kind of lock the door, slide pizzas under the door, and get people to get the collaborative teams to come out with an application, with a prototype, right? Based on assumptions. And once we do that, then we go through the exercise of validating the assumptions, proving out the hypothesis, trying it out in the field to really understand, is the benefit what we thought it was going to be, or do we need to course correct? And we've been through that, and I'll share some of our challenges and how we learned the hard way, and we had to course correct as we went through. So, but ultimately the objective is to get to a point where you've prototyped the solution, you've course corrected, you've removed validated the assumptions, and then you go to a pilot implementation across 3 locations, 2 product lines, 2 regions, whatever it may be, right? And once you prove it out, have a very disciplined foundry model, copy exact, where you can take this application or the solution or this product and duplicate it across your portfolio, right? So easier said than done, but that's where really the change management comes in. So when all of you think about IoT, depending on your roles, I really encourage you to think about the broader organizational transformation that that IoT has, not just a technology impact. Right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of case studies and successes we have seen at Cognizant. One is a global food and beverage manufacturer and distributor. Now, this company has about 2,000 vending machines in Asia, right? And for those of you that have traveled in Asia, distribution is a nightmare. Last mile connectivity is a nightmare. So the customer had really 3 primary challenges. The first one was assets. Assets were disappearing, right? Vending machines, these are not small vending machines. These are big vending machines, maybe a couple of feet taller than I am and heavy, right? I don't know how rickshaws, tuk-tuk, whatever it is, they were literally disappearing. 15% of their vending machines were disappearing. And these are smart vending machines that were connected, granted by GPRS, not to a cloud, but to through telephone network modems. They were disappearing. The second thing was these retail outlets were stocking the vending machines with competitive products, right? So if I'm a Coke, the last thing I want is Diet Pepsi or something else from a Pepsi, and similar and vice versa, right? That was a big challenge. And the third was the right product mix was not being stocked in the vending machine, right? So if one type of drink was selling more, didn't matter. The truck rolls came every 3rd day, 20% of this, 20%, 20, without even regard for loss of revenue or the opportunity cost. So we started engaging with this customer, and they had used a small partner to build out the prototype. And now they were looking for somebody to scale it across all their vending machines. So we had very good, strong relationships with the customer. They knew our supply chain expertise. They knew our distribution expertise. They knew our IoT expertise. So they gave us an opportunity to really build this out, scale the application, scale the solution, and roll it out across all their vending machines, right? So we used instrumentation. We used Azure IoT Cloud. We used Azure IoT Platform and the Azure Cloud. And we basically connected the devices to the cloud, use smart sensors, barcode readers within the vending machines to ensure that the right SKUs were being deployed. And at the same time, we passed the consumption information to logistics to ensure that the truck rolls were optimized. So if a vending machine was stocked, the trucks did not have to make a stop to replenish the inventory because it was already there. And also ensuring the right product mix was in the vending machine, as opposed to just putting 20% of each. So this solution has been rolled out across 400 of their 2,000 vending machines, and the plan is to roll it out across all 2,000 by Q3 of next year. Right? Big, real-world application that started off small, went through the prototype phase, pilot, and now is being implemented across Asia. The next one, I think, is something that will resonate with all of you. We've all here every summer, whether it's Oklahoma or Mississippi, we talk about floods, we talk about tornadoes, Tornado Alley, and impact of life and property and damage and everything else. And it doesn't end there, because if one of us is affected by it, then the whole process of going through the insurance claims process, that's a nightmare, right? Most people's intent is always good, but just the process paralysis of having the insurance companies come out, do surveys, do assessment, access. So it's not only access, but also safety, right? So we implemented a solution for an insurance company, basically, which is drone and Google Glass. So the insurance company puts a drone and a Google Glass in a box, ships it to a local mom and pop store who they've already signed up, and they can walk around, wear the Google Glass, use the drone, fly the drone around the location, records all the data, both complete 360-degree view, and they package it back, send it back to Connecticut to the headquarters or wherever the location is for assessment. And then the claims can be processed within 24 hours after receiving the information back. Now think about this, right? The huge margin expansion opportunity for the insurance company, right? They don't have to put an assessor out in a plane to go out to the field. They're using social networks. They're using crowds. They're using a local retail store owner who's also going to get $100 just for flying something around for 30 minutes and walking around with the Google Glass. So obviously, margin expansion, margin improvement opportunity for the insurance company, but also gives a local retailer another revenue stream that he or she didn't have in the past. So FAA has approved drones for natural disaster areas already. So you'll see more and more of these applications being rolled out. Excuse me. One of the coolest things that I saw was, so I've got an 8-year-old boy, and he loves triathlons. So they have one every summer, and he does a bunch of them over the summer, but the last one in the summer is that they do a half mile, and they do it by age group, 10 and under, 14 and under. The 10 and under do a half-mile swim in Lake Michigan, then they do a 5-mile bike ride, and a 3-mile run. And just think about like 10 elementary schools coming together. That's the number of kids that are there, waiting to get off the starting blocks. And everybody looks the same. They're all wearing jammers and the same red cap and everything else. And as a parent, you're nervous because you see 400 kids running into Lake Michigan. You don't know, if 500 are going to come back outside, right? So obviously, parents are worried. We're all standing there, and everybody's trying to keep, one parent's taking pictures, the other parent's looking at their kid through binoculars. But the beauty about this, for the first time this year, a U-Haul truck pulled up right into the Michigan Lake by the beach, and they had a command center in the U-Haul truck. And about 30 minutes before the race started, about 10 guys came up and they deployed drones all over about 200 yards into Lake Michigan, and drones were just flying around. And I was just blown away to the extent, I was so excited about the application that I didn't even see my son swim. But what they do, and the really nice thing, what they do is these drones are all synchronized, right? And they're monitoring the number of heads that are going into the water, and they're tracking them, the number of heads. They don't know who is what, but they're tracking the number of heads to ensure that the same number of the count is consistent, across a half a mile swim. And that's a very impressive application that I was just, blown away. And I'm sure it'll be rolled out across the Ironmans in Hawaii or Fiji or wherever, right? Beautiful application that all of us can touch and feel, as opposed to some industrial applications where we may not have visibility to. But anyway, just kind of a segue, but I wanted to kind of share. We didn't do anything there, but I was just so impressed with it, with the whole application, I had to share that with you. The next case is a fast food manufacturer, store, business, right? Now, we all know the fast food industry. Margin pressures, huge margin pressures, employee turnovers, and threats of healthy alternatives, right? Chipotles and Quiznos and all these other healthy alternatives that are really disrupting the fast food industry. So this company came to us and asked us, we keep hearing about IoT, help us figure out how we can drive margin expansion. So we got excited. We had a session at a collaboratory. We talked about all the different opportunities. Training is a big impact when you're continuously churning 25% employee turnover every month, right? So we got excited. We built out a very impressive connected kitchen solution, a couple of $100,000 implementation. So I was excited. My team was excited. We were doing backflips, giving each other high fives. And then even the customer was giving us high fives. But then when it came to roll out, 80% of their locations are all franchisees that are operating on single-digit margins, low single-digit margins. And they said, absolutely not. We are not going to implement a $250,000 solution that has an ROI over 10 years or 5 years, because I'm barely making payroll, right? At the end of the day, my revenue from my store is about 800,000. I get 100,000 bottom line, enough to kind of run the business. I am not going to implement a $250,000 solution. So we went back to the drawing board and basically came up with a very nice, elegant, intuitive retrofit, just focusing on the fryer. Why fryer? Because that's where all the consumables optimization opportunity is, oil. Why fryer? Because that's where you ensure that the food is being heated, fried, grilled at the right temperature to prevent overcooking or ensure that it's not undercooked, right? Again, it was a collaborative effort with a partner, with this fast food company, and now that's being rolled out across multiple franchises. But this will take, because this company has over 30,000 locations globally, so we don't expect this rollout to happen anytime in the next, to be completed in the next year, but they're going through 200, based on the higher margin, focusing on the higher margin franchises initially. So the point being, you will have to try new things and learn along the way, be nimble and course correct, right? We were guilty of getting excited by building out a smart kitchen without understanding the economics of the fast food industry, without understanding a majority of this fast food restaurants chain were independent, family-owned franchisees, as opposed to company-owned franchise locations. So the third one is, the next one is really, I'm definitely guilty of this, showrooming, walking to a Best Buy, touching, feeling the TV, the device, then walking away to my smartphone, looking at the Amazon, and pretty cheap, and buying it on Amazon eventually, right? By walking to the store to feel out the product. And this is a challenge that brick and mortar stores face. Showrooming is a big challenge. They've tried to address this in multiple ways. One is promotions, instant promotions, and so on and so forth. But how many of us really opt in for promotions, right? There's enough text messages that we get bombarded with from friends and colleagues. The last thing we need is more text messages coming in from a retailer that we're walking across, right? Because we're not, I don't know, but I don't know how many of us are really impulsive customers that's just going to see, oh, it's 50% off, I don't need it, but I want to spend $100 just to get it, right? Maybe some people are, but so what this does is it's a video analytics solution that we built for a retailer with a partner that really looks at dwell time within aisles, right? And we know privacy is a big issue, so we do not record anybody's facial recognition or whatever. We don't look at all that. We look at dwell time. We look at which SKUs and shelf they're looking at, right? If somebody's spending, and there have been plenty of studies around this, right? If a consumer is spending more than 20 seconds staring at a shelf or a particular SKU, intent is they're more likely to buy it. So then what we do is we send out that information to the shopping, the sales agent on the floor, and that allows him or her to come to the consumer and say, hey, Adithya, I noticed you're looking at this, Apple TV or Samsung TV and so on and so forth. Let me tell you, I know it says $2,100 for the 4K 55-inch TV, but if you're going to buy it today, we'll match Amazon's price and we'll throw in 1-year extended warranty. To be able to close the deal right away through video analytics, right? Very powerful. Now, this hasn't been rolled out yet. It's actually going to be demoed at NRF in January, but it's already been showed to a bunch of retailers, and everybody is very receptive. So we expect to see some pilots gaining traction over the next 3 to 4 months. So one other thing, that was the last slide, but I do want to mention, we talk about wearables, right? We have implemented a solution for a large automobile manufacturer that's going to come out, that'll be out in their 2017 models, where using the automobile's Bluetooth technology, you can start a car. You don't even need remote start anymore. You can start a car, roll down the windows, unlock the car, lock the car, all through your smartwatch. So that's in a high-end automobile manufacturer. It'll be rolled out in 2017. So there are a number of use cases that we've seen. We've done a number of implementations, and the really exciting thing is the first half of the year was spent a lot on general awareness, getting everybody informed, including ourselves, about the endless opportunities of IoT. And literally in the last 4 months, we've seen a number of deals, right, that have come through. We haven't won all of them, but we have competed and won a big portion of those deals, which gives us courage, and which is encouraging, because going into 2016, we think the first half will be a little bit more pilots, but we'll still start seeing a lot more adoption across different industries, primarily manufacturing, all manufacturing, whether it's aircraft engines, whether it's locomotives, energy turbines, or medical devices, right? Manufacturing, logistics, and transportation are three verticals that we think will get a lot of traction. So with that, I'll pause here. I think that's the end of my presentation. I'll see if anyone has questions or. Thank you. Yeah, and if please feel free. If you think I missed anything, I'm always trying to learn and get input from other people. So if you have any points to make, please feel free to let me know too, because it's a constant refining of the message and the solution. We don't have all the answers. Sometimes we think we do, but nobody does. Okay? Thank you.